It is Friday, everyone. You're watching CBC News BC. I'm Benit Brach here in the Vancouver newsroom, and here's what's happening this afternoon. The mother of a 10-year-old Vancouver Island girl who has an extremely rare disease says the nightmare is over after the government restored funding for her daughter's drug for as long as she needs it. So 10-year-old Charlie Pollock has Batten disease and has been using Brineura since 2019. But a committee recommended funding be stopped earlier this year because the drug was no longer effective. But things have taken a turn after international experts signed a letter calling on the Premier and Health Minister to reverse the decision. Charlie's mother says she's going through a lot of mixed feelings.
A mixture of emotions for sure. Top emotion is relief. Other emotions are just kind of crashing from exhaustion. This has been a very long fight for our family. And of course, we wish it never would have happened, but I'm very grateful with the outcome.
Charlie had also received an infusion yesterday, which was privately funded from donors. In a statement, Health Minister Josie Osborne says there is significant disagreement in the scientific community and that Charlie shouldn't have to suffer. She says coverage will now be available for as long as the treating physician and the family deem it appropriate. Funding for that medication costs about $1 million a year. And some BC councillors are stepping into new roles as part of Premier David Eby's cabinet shuffle. Former Vancouver City Councillor Christine Boyle is among them. She was known for her work supporting density and building more housing in Vancouver. She's been moved from her role as Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation, and now will be taking over in housing and municipal affairs. And she told the Early Edition this morning what some of her key priorities are for that new role.
We need this housing built. We know we need it. We need places for people who are homeless to move inside, but we also need places for seniors to downsize and good accessible housing for people with disabilities. So it is a problem that the province can't address alone, that local governments can't address alone. We need all three levels of government working on it.
So some cities at the top of the list to help meet housing requirements by the province include Burnaby, Coquitlam, Langford, Penticton, and Squamish. Okay, and with the weekend coming up, if you've ever found yourself looking for the perfect spot to sway away in a hammock, your search, it's gotten easier now. A Vancouver software developer has mapped out all the best hammock-worthy spots in this city, and he actually shared his personal favorite spot on the Early Edition this morning.
Now for myself, I think the best is Harbour Green Park.
Yeah?
It's fantastic. You're by the path.
Okay.
It's right next to the sea terminal or the planes.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Harbour Green.
Yeah, Harbour Green.
Okay.
You're right by the water. Fantastic view of the mountains. Sometimes I'll go with my girlfriend. We can watch the planes take off and land, rate the pilots. It's a great time.
So if you love using your hammock, there's a long list for you to look through right now. And he says he's found more than 2,500 places to hang hammocks in the city so far. And that's what we have for you so far. I'm Benit Brach. Stay with us. Coming up next is BC Today.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. The province has reversed a decision that discontinued funding for a 10-year-old girl's medication. We'll hear from Charlie Pollock's mother about the reversal and what the ordeal has meant. And injuries related to e-scooters are on the rise, according to a new report. Hits to the face, fractures, even brain injury. Well, do you have experience using e-scooters? Do you worry when you see them on the road? We'll take your calls on that coming up. And at 12:30, Gardening with Brian Minter. He'll take your questions. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. Now, BC's Health Ministry has reinstated coverage for an expensive drug used by a 10-year-old girl from Vancouver Island who has a rare and terminal genetic disorder. Health Minister Josie Osborne issued a statement that Charlie Pollock will once again receive coverage for Brineura, the drug which costs $1 million per year, used to treat CLN2, also known as Batten disease. Now, that disease results in multiple seizures every day and eventually causes brain damage. Last month, Osborne said Charlie's condition met criteria to discontinue the coverage, citing research that the drug no longer slows the progression of Batten disease once it declined to a certain point. Now, Batten disease researchers and advocates from around the world then wrote a letter to Osborne contesting that decision and called to review the discontinuation criteria. Osborne referred to the letter in a statement about reinstating the coverage and says the drug will be available, quote, for as long as the treating physician and the family deem it appropriate. Jory Fales is Charlie's mother, and she says the nightmare is over and she's feeling relief.
Of emotions for sure. Top emotion is relief. Other emotions are just kind of crashing from exhaustion. This has been a very long fight for our family. And of course, we wish it never would have happened, but I'm very grateful with the outcome. I don't know if I've had time to process everything from yesterday. I'm just very hopeful this won't happen to another family and that things could be done differently next time if this situation ever does arise. I think the ball was dropped quite a few times, but that being said, I'm just trying to switch into grateful mode that Charlie is going to get the medication that she vitally needs and deserves. I just love that little human more than anybody in the whole world, and I'm very grateful that she will be with us much longer now. I was terrified when she lost her medication, and I'm just going to focus every single day towards her.
Jory Fales is Charlie Pollock's mother. And at a news conference this morning, Health Minister Josie Osborne issued an apology, said she was sincerely apologizing to the family of the 10-year-old girl. That's from Health Minister Josie Osborne today. More on this story, of course, throughout the day here on CBC. Right now, it's 12:09. You're with BC Today. And of course, we had that BC cabinet shuffle announced yesterday by Premier David Eby. It saw some big moves, some promotions, and stepping up to the big portfolio of housing is former Vancouver City Councillor and now MLA for Vancouver Little Mountain, Christine Boyle. Now, she's been known as a proponent for density and building more housing during her time on Vancouver City Council. She spoke this morning with Stephen Quinn on the early edition about what her priorities will be as she oversees this at a provincial level.
We're going after speculators, and we're working hard to build more badly needed housing. We're taking on zoning reform and leading the country in housing investments, particularly in social and co-op and mixed income housing. We've been working closely with local governments and home builders, and we're seeing it start to have an impact. We're seeing rents come down, but there is so much more to do on all of those files. I know how hard local governments work. That is a tough job these days, and I am really looking forward to partnering with local governments to see the work that we've begun continue to be implemented and see it make a difference in communities. As you say, there are some local governments who are less keen on some of these changes or resistant to certain projects. I certainly saw some of that in my time in local government. Those are conversations that I look forward to having with those local governments.
"12:11 now. You're with BC Today. Thanks for being with us. I'm Michelle Elliott. Well, they sure are a convenient way to commute. E-scooters are gaining in popularity. So you've either used them yourself to get around or you've seen them on city streets and in bike lanes. But they are contributing to a rise in injuries. Across Canada, hospitalizations due to injuries from scooters and e-scooters are going up. And that's according to the Canadian Institute for Health Information. It found nearly 1,000 people hospitalized for scooter-related injuries over the course of a year, starting in April 2023. And half of those were related to the motorized kind, the e-scooters. And ER physicians say the extent of injuries can be severe. They include brain, facial, and dental trauma. Dr. Ran Yan is an ER doctor at Humber River Hospital in Ontario. She says she sees many injuries among kids.
Like minor things like fractures, from a fall, that's quite common. Some of the serious one would be like motor vehicle collisions from just, riding an e-scooter without helmet. Some kids have had intracranial bleed where we had to transfer them to trauma centers. So it can vary from minor to life-threatening. Yeah, it is most of the people who ride scooters are like kids, young adults. So I would often see kids riding scooters with their friends, no helmets on. Some adults, they often would still ride the scooter without helmets too. So lots of people are not following the rules of wearing helmets. Yeah.
Dr. Ran Yan is an ER doctor in Ontario. Well, we're asking you, do you have experience using e-scooters yourself? Or do you worry when you see them on the road? You can give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, or just hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can email bctoday@cbc.ca, or you can post your comment on TikTok. And joining me to take your calls is Rose Gardner, Executive Director of Hub Cycling, and they are now offering new courses on using e-scooters and related to road safety. Rose, thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Why did Hub Cycling introduce these new courses?
Well, as many of you probably observed, e-scooters are on the rise in our communities. And, I've been sharing the bike lanes and paths with them over the years. And, mirroring some of the research we've seen, they're just growing in popularity. But at the same time, we're recognizing that anyone would benefit from opportunities to get education on how to use them safely, how to practice in a sort of low-risk environment, and build comfort and with the devices before heading out on our roads and pathways. We looked around in the Metro Vancouver region and really throughout BC, and we didn't see anyone else providing this kind of what we feel is essential service. And so we've decided to partner with the city of Coquitlam to test it out and pilot these education courses.
Yeah.
Like the study you just mentioned, we've anecdotally also been hearing about injury rates, and we've seen some research from other places outside of Canada that indicated that the first few rides can be especially hazardous. Which makes sense. You're trying something new, getting used to the feel. And so having kind of a safe and controlled environment to practice can try to minimize those risks. So, ultimately we want e-scooter riders to feel safe, understand the rules and responsibilities, and have a venue to do so.
Yeah. And have you ridden on an e-scooter yourself?
I'm not a regular rider. I typically use my e-bike, but I have had the opportunity to test a few out, and I would mirror that experience. Even as someone who rides a bike every day, getting on an e-scooter was a different, but really fun experience.
Yeah.
The Lime scooters just launched in my neighborhood last fall, and I had an opportunity to test them out a few times.
And what makes them so different from the bike? I understand part of it is that the tires, the wheels are narrower.
Yeah, they're smaller wheels in general, and so things like potholes, speed bumps, and sort of rough road surfaces can affect an e-scooter more so than a bicycle. Like if you think about a mountain bike, they have huge tires so that they can roll over all those sort of bumps and uneven surfaces. E-scooters, by law, have to have much smaller tires. And so that is one of the factors. There's also a difference when you're on them in terms of your balance and ability. But yeah, the other thing to think about is the speed,
Yeah.
which, can definitely make a big difference.
Okay,
when you're
yeah. Well, let's go through it. Now, let me just put out the numbers once again. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Let us know if you get around using an e-scooter. What has that been like? What was it like to start out? And if you are someone who is a road user and you see an e-scooter coming toward you, what are your thoughts? Does it worry you? Let us know. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. And interestingly, Hub Cycling, which, as you know, provides courses and safety lessons on using bikes, they're now offering e-scooter lessons. And so we're talking with the executive director of Hub Cycling right now, Rose Gardner. It's interesting to see there are e-scooters, e-bikes like you ride, Rose. There are the hoverboards that are kind of like the sideways skateboards. And then even the unicycles, like motorized unicycles, which to me, it just feels like, I feel like I'm at a circus because I'm just holding my breath when I see someone zipping down the street in one of those. What do you make of all those modes of transportation right now that we're seeing on our roads?
Well, we recognize the benefits to individuals from using these various micromobility devices like electric scooters or bikes. I mean, they can be affordable, convenient, they can provide, physical and mental wellness. They're lots of fun. And there's a lot of benefits to communities, right? If they are taking the place of someone driving a vehicle, It can provide a lot of sort of environmental, social benefits of the sort of reduced vehicle use. So yeah, I mean, they're evolving. There's so many new devices. I share your nervousness sometimes when I see the variety of users out there, but ultimately, I mean, they could be a real benefit to especially our urban communities where space is at a premium, and especially when you combine it with rapid transit or transit in general, then these kinds of micromobility devices can really play a big part in bringing people to and from rapid transit stations that, otherwise might be trying to fit on our overcrowded buses or our already congested streets. So,
yeah, I can understand that for sure. And the fun factor, I bet, I haven't ridden one myself, but I can understand the fun factor. I wonder if there is that concern around not really knowing the rules, as you were talking about with your courses as well. Someone wrote us saying, I don't think they should be allowed on sidewalks because I've been grazed by a cyclist passing me unexpectedly on sidewalks. And I think folks should have to take training that's compulsory before they can buy one of these. So you're not, even on an e-scooter, you're not allowed to be on a sidewalk, according to the city of Vancouver anyway, right?
No, that's correct. The rules are similar to riding a bike or an e-bike with a few changes. Sidewalk riding is not allowed unless it's a specific sidewalk that's been designated as a cycle lane. But sometimes that happens when there's no safe alternative. So, we really think with the growth of these kinds of devices and e-bikes and others, we really need to build out that connected and complete active transportation network, with sustainable and ongoing funding, because when there is a cycle lane available, e-scooters can use them, and they generally do. But when they're not available, that's some of the data I've seen from the city of Vancouver is, the places where the highest sidewalk riding happens is where there's a real desire line, like a a gap in the network, and no alternative exists.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's not currently allowed.
Yeah. So
But-
there's, in Victoria, that's an email from Victoria, but there's the sort of perhaps a lack of awareness, right, of what is actually the rule. So we'll go through some more of them with you. But let's take a call right now in Vernon, and Stephen is calling us. Hi, Stephen. Welcome. What are your thoughts on e-scooters?
Hi. I have pretty mixed thoughts, largely because the vast majority of people I see here in Vernon aren't wearing helmets with them. And obviously helmet safety is important, but, I'm coming at it from maybe a different perspective than a lot of people, because I have actually sustained 9 brain injuries over the course of my life from various causes, and most of them were labeled as concussions. But it's still a brain injury. Like a concussion outside Canada, Australia, and the UK is classified as a minor traumatic brain injury. And they really add up. And for me, they actually, as I developed more and more of them, caused epilepsy for me. And there is no cure. So it's been really disabling for me. And I don't think a lot of people really have those like long-term health outcomes in mind when they're making the decision to say like, oh, I don't want to mess up my hair before I go to work. I'm not going to wear the helmet. And it's just really frustrating to see that. I really worry for the people who are on these e-scooters, who are on these powered mobility devices, like personal mobility devices, like you were saying. I really do worry for them.
Stephen, thanks so much for sharing that. And wow, I can't imagine the impact that it's had on your life, but thank you for sharing that message of just how debilitating it can be to live with a brain injury long term. Thanks very much for calling in. That's Stephen in Vernon, something we heard, of course, from the ER doctor who was clipped there in our program. And Rose, how concerned are you that people aren't wearing helmets, and how do you think we can enforce that or increase their use?
Well, I mean, helmets can play an important role in mitigating head injuries, and especially with speed, as we see in e-scooters, we definitely advocate for their use. I just want to also recognize that legally, e-scooters should only be going a maximum of 25 kilometers an hour,
Right.
but anecdotally, I see a lot more like privately owned scooters that are capable of going much faster than that. And even when we were looking to purchase scooters for our courses that are starting that started this week, it was difficult to find, in some cases, scooters that met that speed control. So especially when using devices that are capable of faster speeds, highly recommend it. However, helmets will only protect a small part of your body. And so when, looking at other injury risks, we really advocate for other strategies to reduce that risk, like safe and protected micromobility or cycle lanes. There's other evidence-based ways you can try to reduce your risk by choosing safer routes that have lower traffic volumes, lower speeds. Using lights day and night can also reduce your risk of injury throughout your body, because a helmet, won't protect the rest of your body from that.
Yeah.
So
Any kind of
thinking about
protection. Yeah, for sure.
all of those things,
Yeah.
not, and that ultimately, if you're using those other, those other strategies to reduce your risk, and you're able to, and there are safer routes in your community, then, I believe people can use e-scooters and other devices and bicycles and get a lot of benefits, a lot of health benefits as well.
Well, we have a caller now in Vancouver who would like to talk about the benefits, and John is joining us. Hi, John. Welcome.
Hi. I just really excited about the scooters, because I think that as soon as we get our whole transportation grid electrified, the easier it will be to eliminate transportation completely, so that people will be confined to basically just walking, and that way they won't be able to escape our 15-minute cities as easily. So this will eliminate a lot of the carbon dioxide that is poisoning the planet, and so ultimately the depopulation of the planet would be a lot easier once we have electrified the vehicles.
Okay.
digitally controlled.
But let's go back to
shut
scooters,
down
though.
on a moment's notice. Yeah.
John, let's get back to scooters, and you're saying they contribute as a mode of transportation to reduce climate change or reduce
they're
climate
kind
pollution.
of a step along the way. Because if you notice that you can drive an electric scooter without any problem, but if you drive a gas-powered scooter, you have to have a license. So you're induced to drive an electric scooter, which is basically, helps us to move us along towards a total elimination of personal transportation. Which will be a big step towards eliminating any possible escape from, the.
I'm trying to follow you there, but do you use a scooter yourself, John?
I can't afford one.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I climb on the sweaty, smelly buses because, that's all I can afford.
Okay, John.
I'm on a limited income. I'm a Canadian, so that's how it goes.
I hear you, John. Thank you very much for your call. Brad is our next caller now in Kelowna. Hi, Brad.
Hi, how are you?
I am fine. And what are your thoughts on e-scooters?
Yeah, so I am a homeowner in downtown Kelowna, and we have obviously a number of tourists that come here and really enjoy the fun of renting scooters. The challenge is that there's absolutely no enforcement to force these things onto the roadways. So in downtown Kelowna, it's not uncommon for scooters to come in extremely close proximity to pedestrians. I've had many near misses when walking our dog, to the point that admittedly, I'm a bit scared to even walk on the sidewalk. So and I have heard anecdotally that there are a number of people that own scooters who, to your guest point, are changing out the motors that are in these scooters so that they can actually go even faster. So I realize the police have far better things to be spending their time on, but it's scary here.
You bring up a good point there as well with tourists, Brad. Thank you very much for the call from Kelowna. And to your point, we have a comment on TikTok. Corin writes, a lot of stores will make the modifications to make e-scooters go faster. And Amos writes as well, make bicyclists stop at stop signs, too many accidents happening. And also Sherry Martin writes, scooters are dangerous on the road and pathways. Okay, so concerns there. And Heather in Vancouver as well writes, I live in the West End near Stanley Park, near all the scooter rental shops. They are told not to ride on the sidewalk, but they do. Tickets need to be given out. Heather, thanks very much for that. Yeah, Rose, and you talk about, being new, being a novice e-scooter rider. Imagine if you're a tourist as well, and this is used as a mode of transportation, you might be even more ginger as you gingerly riding along and perhaps not quite as aware or paying attention because you're new to the city itself.
Absolutely. And, we engage with a number of rental agencies and bike shops and others to try to promote that education so that people have access to, understanding the rules, the responsibilities that they have as riders. But, I can speak from experience. Sometimes it's really scary on the roads, and I can only imagine as a tourist, being handed an electric scooter and saying, okay, go forth without maybe adequate information about where are the bike paths and other safe routes, that it can be a bit of a complicated process to navigate our cities and avoid. But yeah, I mean, this is why we're piloting these courses. It's the first ones that I've heard about happening in BC. And if anyone would like to sign up or find out more, there's information on our website, bikehub.ca. There's courses as early as next week happening, and then throughout the month of August and September, so that and scooters are provided at the course, so you can come out and try it out and see if this might be something you'd like to use.
What a worthwhile endeavor. And so what's the reaction been like? Have you had people signing up?
We just had our first course last week, and it's just early days, so we don't have too much feedback yet from the courses, but we're very much open to it. I think at least one of the courses in August is already sold out, but we just launched the registration in the last couple of weeks, so we'll be monitoring and really open to feedback. But ultimately, we see these scooters here; they're probably here to stay, and we just want to provide not just education on how to stay safe, but also that etiquette piece as well, right? So if you are riding e-scooters, how to stay off the sidewalk, how to find those alternate routes so that you can be comfortable riding in your community and not need to use sidewalks to get around.
Yeah, it does look like they're here to stay. Really good to hear about this new course, Rose. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That's Rose Gardner, Executive Director of Hub Cycling. It's 12:31 now. You're with BC Today here on CBC. And coming up, we're going to talk gardening. Yes, Brian Minter is going to be with us. And so you can call in with any and all of your gardening questions. That is coming your way right after the CBC News Update with Rob Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. Health Minister Josie Osborne is sincerely apologizing to the family of a 10-year-old girl whose medication for a rare disease was cut off. Osborne issued the apology at a news conference earlier today after her government announced last night it would restore the drug funding for Charlie Pollock, who is the only person in BC with Batten disease. The medication costs about $1 million a year. The province cited an expert committee that ruled the drug was no longer helping slow the progress of the girl's disease. 4 people were taken to hospital in Burnaby last night after a bromine gas leak. The gas came from a building in the 8,000 block of Wigan Street, but the source of the leak isn't clear. People were complaining about throat and lung irritation. They're listed in stable condition. 80 other people were evacuated from nearby buildings while the area was ventilated. And the BC Wildfire Service says a fire that started yesterday near the north end of Asuyus Lake is now under control. It started at a home and then spread to dry grass and brush. And now the forecast on the north coast. Cloudy this afternoon with a high of 15. Highs reaching 22 with showers and a risk of thunderstorms in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, a few showers and thunderstorms with a high of 22 as well. Highs getting close to 30 with a chance of showers and thunderstorms in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, a chance of showers with a high of 26. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, and the Fraser Valley, clearing this afternoon with highs in the mid-20s. That's your CBC News Update from Vancouver.
Thank you very much, Rob. You have a great weekend, okay?
Thanks. You too.
Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. You're with BC Today here on CBC on a Friday afternoon. And yes, things cooling down a little bit, so perhaps more comfortable for you. Coming up, though, in your region in Metro Vancouver, of course, the afternoon show on CBC Radio 1. And for Metro Vancouver listeners, here's what's coming up on the Coast.
Michelle, hi there. It's Gloria Macarenko here, and I wanted to let you know there's a great lineup for On the Coast later this afternoon. Amy Bell is going to be here in the host chair this afternoon and through next week as well. So Amy's got some tickets to give away to the Folk Music Festival. You're going to meet some of the artists performing this weekend there as well. And you'll also hear about the benefits and the challenges of installing heat pumps in condo buildings. Also, Darius Madavi is going to be here with his weekly science quiz. So join On the Coast and Amy Bell between 3 and 6 this afternoon.
Gloria, thank you very much. That is Gloria Macarenko, and you're going to hear Amy Bell this afternoon on the Coast. Okay, lots of emails have come in on the e-scooter topic. Kathy writes, I always pay attention to the walking lanes now that I've been almost run over by these quiet, stealthy, fast-moving and reckless riders or drivers. And Wade writes, on a recent trip to Singapore, I was amazed to experience a bike and scooter culture that worked incredibly well. What surprised me the most is that sidewalks are wide, which scooters and bicycles are designed to share with pedestrians. Okay, and he writes, Singapore is getting it right, providing a safe experience for riders and pedestrians. Thanks for sharing that. bctoday@cbc.ca is our email address. (12:35) and you're with BC Today. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thanks for being with us. And it is a Brian Minter Friday. Yay! Fry-yay is what we like to say when Brian Minter's around. He's, of course, here with his gardening advice and to take your gardening questions. So you can call us now, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Email bctoday@cbc.ca, or if you're watching us on TikTok, you can post your question to Brian there. And Brian Minter does join me now from Country Garden Limited in Chilliwack, where it's a little bit cooler today, isn't it, Brian?
Oh, it's great, Amy. When you're working in a greenhouse and when it's 31 degrees, this is really nice.
I know you've been talking to Amy Bell, but it's Michelle back here now. You just called me Amy.
Okay, Michelle. Anyway, a couple of things. We're in doo-doo in our gardens right now for whole number of different reasons. And first of all, those cute little butterfly moths, the white ones that are fluttering around right now, 3 or 4 days, they're laying eggs, and all those little larvae are chewing up your cabbage and cauliflower and broccoli and having a great time out there. Not for you. The other thing is scale. So many folks on their maple trees, on their lavender tree, virtually everywhere, hydrangeas in particular. On the outside, look on the bottom of your leaves, Michelle, because there's scale on the bottom, and that's a big problem as well. Aphids are everywhere. Aphids are having a wonderful time in your garden, by the way. Go out and check and join them because there's lots of them out there. And when it gets hot, like it is, spider mites come out of nowhere as well. They're on the bottom. They're a sucking insect, and you see things going brown. That's part of the problem right now. The other thing is, just so you know, to make you happy, this is the season right now, mid-July, for the early tomato blight. So keep the water off the leaves of your tomatoes. That's really, really very important right now. And again, those wonderful cucumbers and squash, you're harvesting hopefully a lot of zucchinis right now. But if you're watering on the leaves and watering at night, guess what? Mildew everywhere, which is a bit of a situation. And in the hot weather, a lot of the vegetables we love, some varieties of lettuce in particular, bok choy, and so many of the wonderful Asian vegetables are bolting because it got too hot. So, Michelle, this is a drop in the bucket of all the things that are going on that are really upsetting. So, I work so hard to get my garden, and all of a sudden, just a couple of reminders. Go and look at your garden on a daily basis because observation is the great thing. And if you have a few aphids, take the nozzle off the end of your hose, put your finger over the end of the hose, spray them off. That's a great way to get rid of the aphids very, very quickly. If it's a cabbage butterfly moth and you see holes all over your cabbage, that bacterial spray, BTK, which is organic, will actually stop them right away, which is really very, very good. Spider mites, remember the solution for spider mites is water. Mist it on the leaves. That'll get them really looked after. Scale, horticultural oil. If you have scale outside, and a lot of your plants are inside as well, look at the bottom carefully. They're an insect that can be either white or kind of a browny color. They really stick to the leaves, but spray them with a growing season ratio of horticultural oil. And Michelle, that will make all the difference in the world. You have to do it 3 or 4 times, but it will get rid of them. But and of course, the tomato blight, or late blight, which takes place about a month from now, that's one we have to worry about. The middle one is not so bad. The early blight is really quite grenade. But do look after your tomatoes and keep the water off the leaves. A couple of things more. A lot of things have really become quite starved in our gardens because we've been watering baskets and containers, and a lot of our vegetables, leaching a lot of the nutrient away. Get some feed, organic or otherwise, on your vegetables right now. That's very, very important. And remember, if you have root crops, you want a low nitrogen, high phosphorus type of feed to develop the roots, which is very, very important as well. So, Michelle, those are just the tip of the iceberg on tops of so many different types of plants and challenges we're having in our garden right now. But they're all manageable, and just keeping an eye on them is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, the visual check. Brian, thanks so much. Brian Minter is with us, our gardening columnist, and he joins us every second Friday here on the show, and he's joining me from Chilliwack. You can call in with your question for Brian. It's 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, and you can email bctoday@cbc.ca. And yes, Brian, tomatoes, very timely to talk about tomatoes right now. And Kale is calling from Kelowna. Welcome, Kale. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Michelle. Hi, Brian.
Hi.
Yeah, I have just a simple question. I hope. I was gifted a tomato plant in a pot. It's doing really well. Curious, if I leave it in the pot, will it survive the winter indoors, or should I just transplant it? Is there no hope in that?
Well, if you have an indeterminate variety of tomato, like the greenhouse growers are using, their darn things are 20 feet high and full of tomatoes right to the very top. So yeah, if you got the right conditions, that means lots of light. You can actually do that. So with indeterminate tomatoes, that's really the big one. The only thing I'm concerned about, and I didn't mention this on your tomatoes right now, is to really increase, get some lime on there, because a deficiency of calcium is going to cause a blossom and rot on the bottom of your tomatoes. So get some calcium on, or lime on your tomatoes right now. That's very, very important. But you sound like you know what you're doing really, really well. But if it's indeterminate, yeah, keep it going.
All right, thanks.
Kale, thanks very much. And yeah, good luck to you with that. We actually have another tomato question by email here from Margaret, who has tomatoes in containers. And she writes, they were doing great, but they seem to have suffered damage on their leaves from the wind, and some of the leaves have died. Any tips on how to save them?
Yeah, you know what? Feeding to really make sure and I love the slow release fertilizers on tomatoes, something like we always talk about 14, 14, 14, slow release. So, in terms of a plant being beat up to recover, they do need nutrient and feed. And, tomatoes are so vigorous. And again, pick off the dead leaves. Always get rid of the evidence, Michelle. That's very, very important. But pick off the dead leaves, and with some feed, they'll come right back. But maybe we could do something in terms of stopping the wind, or put them in a location, or put a wind block up. I think that's going to be very, very important, because it sounds like it's not going to be going away anytime soon. But no, tomatoes in containers, great. But again, feeding right now, very, very important to overcome that and get the growth back on the tomatoes.
Thanks very much, Margaret, for your email. And our numbers again, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, or just hit pound 690 on your phone. You can email bctoday@cbc.ca. Yvonne is joining us from the West Kootenays now with a question for Brian. Hi, Yvonne, go ahead.
Hi, Brian.
Hi.
Hi, I'm questioning about, I have quite a few different, I have a yellow plum, a Santa Rosa plum tree, a crabapple tree, a 100-year-old apple tree, and now a new dwarf sour cherry tree. Starting last year, like they all bloom out nice, and then branches start dying off. I have branches that the bark is peeling, or cracking and peeling, and even the yellow plum that is like over 10 years old, the whole trunk is all cracked and peeling. So now so they're all dying off, and I don't know what to do. I'm worried. Everything's dying.
Well, you're in the East Kootenays, and
West Kootenays.
Yeah, and we're basically seeing some leftover damage from the winter we had 2 years ago that did that incredible amount of damage, especially in the Okanagan. And I think we're seeing, but I have to ask this, in wintertime, and we didn't have a bad winter this year at all, but in winter, if you get a lot of sun, you'll find that it will actually, when things are frozen, start damaging bark on many trees. It happens particularly in a lot of shade trees and so on, not necessarily on fruit trees. But is the growth okay on the branches? We're getting good growth, good vegetation?
Well, they're dying off. They're actually
they
dying
are.
off.
Everything's dying off. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Big chunks are dying off. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like it was good growth. It was great. And now even my yellow plum, there's almost a third of it is dying. A whole big branches. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's unusual. Now, without being silly here, it is getting adequate water because we've had a very dry year.
Yes.
Okay. And around the drip line of the tree?
No, I don't have that. No.
No, I'm so sorry. But what I'm saying, where the water is going right now, because we're having a lot of fruit drop on so many fruit trees right now because they're a little bit dry. And late June and July is the time that we have to water the drip line, where the outside canopy of the tree, that's where we want to water. And because we've been exceptionally dry and had some very, very hot weather. But this is highly unusual, Yvonne. I've never seen heard of this happening right now, particularly at this time, because they should be in the midst of a growing time. And do you have fruit on the trees?
Yes, And even this started to do last year, and even in the front, it's very sunny and hot. But in the back, I have a 100-year-old tree. He's huge, and he gets lots of water. Mm-hmm. And he's more than 2 feet wide. But the small branches, full of apples, the actual branches are all the bark's cracking in linear lengths and peeling off, and then everything's drying up. I mean, the leaves are drying up, crisping up. Of course, the apples can't form. Even in the big tree is dying. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, Yvonne, without seeing it, it's hard for me to say this is highly unusual. And the only thing I could say from that winter we had 2 years ago, you're just getting, the only thing I could think of is residual damage, because it did damage the trees in the Okanagan for 2 years. It wasn't 1 year, but they at least got the growth back. All I can suggest you do, Yvonne, is do a hard pruning. Where you're getting dieback, just prune them. I know the 100-year-old tree has gone through a lot in the past, decade or millennia. But the issue is, I would just continue to feed the trees at 10, 15, 19. Again, making sure that you have adequate water as we go through the season to see if we can't get new growth developing. And all you can do is prune out the deadwood, Yvonne. That's all you can do at this point until we can get to the bottom of what's happening here.
Okay.
Get a fresh start there. Yvonne, I'm sorry to hear that. It sounds extensive. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's highly unusual, Yvonne, really.
Yeah, I have, even going up the path, I have 2 columnar crabapple trees. You know what those are? Anyway, one is packed full of apples, beautiful, nothing's wrong. Yeah. The other one, the whole middle piece, which is the biggest piece in the, the biggest branch in the middle, is dead.
Yeah. Oh, dear.
It's difficult.
Yvonne, just perhaps that might be the way, is just, per Brian's advice, kind of just start afresh. Thank you so much for the call. Now, it's interesting. Yvonne's calling from the West Kootenays, but Rob is calling us from Vavenby with some issues with fruit trees as well. So, hi, Rob. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Dr. Minder. I don't get to listen to you very often, but when I do, you always make my Fridays. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank
you.
That's
a good thing.
That's very kind.
Good. We planted 2 cherry trees last year, so a little bit different than Yvonne. They were, it's a Crimson Passion and a Cupid. They had a good year. They survived the winter. This spring, we had lots of blossoms, lots of fruit. We got rid of almost all the fruit, so we didn't burden the tree. And then the smaller one, I think the Cupid, I was looking outside after we had a windstorm, and I thought it was leaning a bit. Went outside anyway, and all the bark on one side of the trunk has peeled back, and we can't see anything that looks like a critter in there, but it looks like almost there might be the same thing happening on the other cherry tree. So it didn't go through the 2 winters, but they still have good foliage, both of them, but the one actually looks like it's leaning a bit now, and we're worried we're going to lose them both here.
Rob, this really concerns me, because the cherries you mentioned, they're a special breed of incredibly hardy, prairie hardy fruits, and they're sour cherries. But again, if you let the fruits mature and ripen, they have the sugar bricks of a Bing cherry, so that they're really unusual, but incredibly hardy. These plants are like minus 40 is okay for them. So I have no idea why this is happening. It's the sweet cherries that with the rain and we have in April and May, it affects them. No, not the sour cherries. They always seem to go through this. And are you feeding them at this point?
We've got organic 845 in there and liquid 20.
Good. No, they're getting adequate feed here. Like Yvonne, this makes absolutely no sense. I know these trees. We grow them. They're vigorous. They're so incredibly vigorous. And when every other tree, kind of struggles in the heat and so on, these guys say, I'm just going to grow and be fine. And they are. So no idea, as with Yvonne, just keep watering them and feeding them, and watch and see if we can get, they have a foliage on them right now, but just watch the bark. And any bark that peels away, I'd like you to cut it out so it's clean next to the bark. And if you can get some heel and seal, basically they're young trees, and put it on to cover up where the cracks are in the tree. That at this point here, that's all we can do. So I thank you for letting me know. It's surprising the dickens out of me, because I know these trees and how tough they are.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, that's good to hear because we don't do everything right, that's for sure. But there's no chance it's some sort of bug that's mining under the bark there, I guess. I haven't heard of
No,
that.
I mean, you can go and take a look, but not on,
Right.
on those cherry trees. Sour
Mm.
cherry trees are the least to be affected at all. They're just, like really resilient and tough. So keep in touch, will you, Rob? I want to see how this plays out. I really do.
Yeah. Rob,
Okay. Well,
please
thanks.
do. Yeah. Go ahead. Yes, my
Okay.
apologies. Go ahead.
All good. Thank you very much. We'll get the heel and seal, and we'll keep smiling at it. So good. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Rob.
Rob, thank you very much. Good to hear your good nature about this. And it's, it's rare that Brian isn't sure or, doesn't know. And I'm glad that you just say, I don't know. And so hopefully the steps that they're taking now, which is using the heal and seal and just kind of helping it to heal, hopefully those things will help with both of those callers. Thanks very much for the calls. Mary is up next in Penticton now. Hi, Mary.
Hi. Hi, guys. Thank goodness I don't have a tree question.
Yeah.
Anyways, I do have other issues that kind of just noticed this week. I don't think it's been going on very far, but one of them is my Victoria salvias. The whole plant looks like or 3 plants look like they've turned rusty brown. Now, I was going to trim them after they've flowered, but I'm not even sure they're going to make it. The foliage is, like I said, that reddish, rusty brown. I've never really seen anything like it. They're usually pretty indestructible, and I'm wondering if and I don't see a lot of brown leaves, so I don't think it's spider mites. And my potted petunias in some of my baskets, they also are just kind of the stem, and they have like crunchy bottom leaves. I'm assuming that might be spider mites, if that's the season for them.
Yeah, take a leaf and turn it upside down, and with a magnifying glass, you can see spider mites. They're tiny little brown specks, and they move. They move fairly quickly. Take a look at them. Surprised about the blue salvias because all the new varieties are incredibly tough and resilient. Are you feeding right now, Mary?
Yes, bloom and 2020, nothing else fancy.
Okay, you know what I'd really love to do because we do it ourselves, and we have our own containers at home, and I know I'm going to recommend getting some of the 14-14-14 time release for that continuous feeding, because 2020 is nice for a bit of a quick shot, but it goes quickly, and it leaves the plant just looking for something. Whether the time release 14-14 basically feeds every single day for 4 months. That continuous feed makes a difference. Now, it'll take about 8-9 days to kick in before it starts working, but please do that. And on the petunias, yeah, I see a lot of that happening. What I'd love you to do, though, please, is take a pair of scissors and prune the petunias back. We do a lot of pruning of petunias because sometimes they just don't sell as well. We cut them back and feed them, and they're back like new in just about a week or 10 days. So feeding the 14-14, do a little bit of pruning, and look at them carefully to see if there's any insects in there. But again, really surprised, Mary, with the blue salvias because I know how resilient and tough they are. But prune them back to get new growth coming.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck, Mary. Thank you. Robert is calling now from Saanich. Hi, Robert. Thanks for joining us. What's your question for Brian Minter?
Hi. Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah.
My question for Brian is that I have a multi-type apple tree espaliated on a south-facing wall. And this year, for some strange reason, we never got any blossoms to get apples. And yet I have a neighbor that's less than 100 meters away, has a small apple orchard for cooking apples, and he's got tons of apples on his tree.
Well, Robert, first of all, that's very annoying. That
Trying
just
to keep
makes
up
me
with the
really,
neighbor
really
here.
angry, right? but again, we could look at your tree when the leaves fall off in the autumn, and we would know right away because you can see the spurs on the tree, how many blossoms are going to get. So it's really developing more spurs on the tree is where it's going to happen. Now, and I don't know if you seem like to know exactly what you're doing here, but I'd like to see more growth coming on that espalier tree. And when I see some growth coming straight up, sometimes I'll just bend them over a bit or go more horizontally to try and develop more spurs, or sometimes I'll cut them with, 2 nodes up to try and get one of those nodes to become a spur as well. So it's about developing spurs on the plant. And that's really it's a training situation over the summertime, Robert. That's really all it is. So it's a simple lack of the development of spurs, and that's what we have to work on by getting new growth and getting that growth to develop more spurs. That's the only thing we can do.
Strangely enough, this year I had, as usual, I've had lots of growth on the tree, but just no blossoms.
Yeah. Well, it's the spurs that cause the blossoms, and that's really what we have to work on. And I wish I was there with you. We can take a look, and I'd show you how to cheat a little bit to get more of them. But anyway, at this point here, it's developing spurs over the summertime with the new growth. That's really our only hope.
Yeah, I think you road trip to Saanich, Brian.
Yep. I'll be right over.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Robert, thank you so much for the call. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
You take care.
Thanks, Robert.
Thanks. That's Robert in Saanich. Yeah, a lot of really puzzling questions today, and I hope that people kind of keep up with catch us up on what happens, what turn.
And they're all
is.
very similar. These are highly unusual situations, and so yeah. Well. Anyway, we're going to keep working on it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that too, Brian, that you just said, you know what, this is what you can do for now. It's not a complete solution, but it's a start anyway. So I really appreciate that. We'll talk again in 2 weeks. I hope you enjoy your weekend, a little bit cooler now.
Thank you, Michelle. It's so nice to work with you. It really is. And to all our listeners out there, there's a lot of pest situations out there which we can deal with organically. But please go in your garden, around your plants and your trees, and take a look at things, because all of those have a solution. And that, to me, is so very important. You work so hard to get a garden. We want to make sure that it comes to fruition.
Yeah, do that check. Brian, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Michelle.
Brian Minter joined us from Country Garden Limited in Chilliwack. And, I mentioned a road trip. We talked about road trips yesterday, right? Erin wrote us about going to the Okanagan every summer, and her mom would make tomato and bacon sandwiches for the trip. They'd stop and buy fruit. They'd say hello to the Ogopogo, and they'd stay at the Pilgrim House in Penticton. We'd play pitch and putt, paddleboard, and swim. It was the best time ever. Really loved hearing your road trip stories. Thanks so much for that. You can email bctoday@cbc.ca.